Okay, you're going to want to pay attention because Blizzard are screwing up so badly, and I'm afraid that it's too late to fix this. This is not hyperbole, this is not exaggeration, this will have long-reaching effects in the story for World of Warcraft, in a very bad way. So patch 11.1.7 is on the PTR right now, you can play it, and in that patch is a new questline called Legacy of Arathor. It's essentially a questline where you join Faerun Lothar, a new character introduced with the War Within, and Daneth Trollbane as you go back to the Arathi Highlands to deal with some political strife that's going on there. It's a really interesting idea for a questline, and also one that lays the foundation for a story that is absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, going to have a major presence in the next expansion, Midnight, considering we are on the doorstep of Quel'Thalas here. But the problem is, this questline is terrible. There's no other way to put it. It's just bad. And it's not bad, in my opinion, because of the plot beats, or what necessarily happens. It's bad because it's boring and off-putting, because the writing quality here is absolutely abysmal, and is some of the worst I have seen from Blizzard. I was hoping we were past this, but clearly we were not. Let me give you a brief rundown of what actually happens in this questline. It's not that long, it's only like an hour long. So you may be going, Jmulls, how could an hour-long quest do as much damage to this game as you are making it out to do? Well, strap yourselves in. The questline starts with you teleporting to the Arathi Highlands, where immediately you are greeted by a cutscene of Faerun Lothar being excited about being in the Arathi Highlands, learning about the place where her empire originally came from. And then Daneth Trollbane comes in like an absolute wet blanket, talking about, it's not all that, right? And there's a real problem with Stromic's supremacy, and stuff like that. And again, I want to reiterate here, the specifics in my opinion, the overall plot beats in a long-term storytelling way aren't necessarily all that bad. They aren't particularly compelling, but they aren't all that bad. The problem I have largely lies in the writing, how the game is trying to convey these plot beats and these themes to the player, because the dialogue in this storyline is absolutely god-awful, and certain decisions that were made in terms of the tone and atmosphere completely undercut what they're trying to do here in my eyes. In fact, here's the scene.
Is that
Thoradin's Wall? Yes.
Then the stories and legends I read as a child were true?
Stories are just stories, Faerun. And that wall is just a wall.
I know Arathi history is embellished enough. But are you not proud of your heritage?
Yes, but pride in our legends foments Stromic superiority and reasons to strike at our neighbors.
I understand. Among my people, some still distrust outsiders. I had thought your people...
Going to Kaz Olgar was unpopular in Stromgarde. But the Sons of Lothar promote tolerance and mercy.
I view this as a boring, contrived, and just a poorly written way for the writers to preach and talk down to the audience, all the while having the creativity of a used bandage. It's an interesting framing for the character, who is so intertwined with Stromgarde, with the Arathi Highlands, that being Daneth Trollbane, to being old and jaded, though we have seen this type of character before too many times in Warcraft, by the way, especially in more recent times in recent stories. But the dialogue undermines any good writing that could come of it because it's written in such a way where it feels like the writers are trying to lecture you on a message instead of in-game characters naturally communicating with each other because of how stiff the dialogue is and how stiff the animations are. It resembles more of a Sesame Street puppet show trying to teach kids that stealing is bad or something. The problem in my eyes isn't the message being told, it's the way that it's being conveyed, in the most off-putting and annoying way, as if you're trying to read someone's, Twitlonger post or something. People are playing this game because it's called World of Warcraft. And when you have these themes written in such a way, it feels like you're trying to undermine the elements of this game and the story that people care about and get invested in, simply because you think having a good theme or being moral automatically makes the story compelling and good. No, it's lame and derivative, and it's the exact style of storytelling we wanted done with when it comes to the World Soul Saga. Especially when we're this deep into the first story of it, The War Within. I am personally fine with games being political. I'm fine with World of Warcraft being political. I think some of the best moments in World of Warcraft's story is when it's talking about the inherent politics of that world. And it should, because it's about war. But it needs to be written in a way that's remotely entertaining and also well written. I think intention absolutely matters when it comes to stuff like this, because if the player is able to become immersed in the story, because it feels like what these characters would do, how they would act, how they would react, and what they would say, and how they would think and feel, then that produces an environment where they're more willing to hear you out and to digest what's going on. But if it feels more like I just signed up for a college lecture, then no. A lot of people will be turned off by that because that's not what we're here for. So the rest of the story is essentially following Faerun around the zone of the Arathi Highlands, learning about the current state of not only Stromgarde but also the Horde outposts that are there, with characters like Eitrigg and the Magha Orc Lady who finally has some story. Actually kind of nice to see that in my opinion. And essentially what's going on is that resources are kind of thin because of the war effort going on in Khazal-Gar, so the poor people of Stromgarde and the Arathi Highlands are really struggling. And there's a bunch of propaganda going on about human supremacy, how all the problems they're dealing with are because of the non-human races in the Arathi Highlands. Can you start to gather where this story is going to go, by the way? And you learn about a new organization that's like coming into the picture called the Red Dawn. And all these disparate like outcast and criminal groups in World of Warcraft's history, like the Syndicate, like the Defias. All these groups are coming together, and you find out are like essentially merging into the Red Dawn, or at least groups from those groups. And they're being led by, I believe, the niece of Daneth Trollbane, Merrin. And you may be going, well, Jmulls, who is that? Well, if you wanted the actual backstory about what's going on here, I hope you listen to the 5-part audio novella they released called Hotlands, because it's borderline required reading, if you at least want to understand the backstory of what's going on here. You can still follow along without it, but a lot of the story, at least when it comes to Merrin, kind of feels like, so it was you all along. Insert random NPC here. Daneth Trollbane leaves for the outpost Hammerfall, which is the Orcish settlement, the Horde settlement, but he goes missing. So you and Faerun go on a quest to try and track down Daneth Trollbane with the help of the Horde, who are more than willing to help you out and more than willing to take in various human refugees. We'll get back to that. You put some pieces of the puzzle together, you learn more about the Red Dawn. The refugees the Horde took in turned out to actually be plants from Red Dawn, who start to burn down their, like, outpost. You stop that from happening. The Red Dawn stage a revolt against Stromgarde, you put it down. Faerun is about to take out Merrin, but Daneth Trollbane comes out of nowhere and saves her, talking about how we cannot turn her into a martyr. I'm just gonna take her name and her title away from her. That'll be that. And she'll have no power because of that. It's completely stupid, but again, we'll get to that. It's a short little quest line that is meant to illustrate what is currently going on in the Arathi Highlands, the struggles therein, and also flesh out certain characters, while also developing a new faction called the Red Dawn, who will almost certainly come back into the story when it comes to Midnight. It's not the most engaging thing of all time, but I think in terms of the plot beats that are happening, that's not the major issue here. It's the way that it's conveyed, because oh my god, are the Red Dawn wholly uninteresting when it comes to the actual game. My god, they are portrayed like the worst iterations of a Saturday morning cartoon villain you've ever seen. They even have you fight one of the leaders of the Red Dawn called Joseph the Enlightened, and I swear this dude just needs a twirling mustache to like make it all work. You fight him like 3 different times throughout this questline. Bear in mind it's only like an hour long. You absolutely smack this dude down each time, so he does not feel like a threat, and the dude just bubble hops away at the end of each quote-unquote defeat. And like, you're meant to fear this dude, like you're meant to take him seriously, but the writing is told in such a way where you physically cannot, because he's like comically bad, but also feels as if he has the power of a level 1 gnome or something. And like, when all is said and done, it doesn't feel like all that much actually happened. A revolt happens, but it's put down quickly. They start a few fires, but you put them out. The framing of, oh, people are getting upset because the Alliance aren't providing any supplies or help to the people of the Arathi Highlands, which could be an interesting theme to explore because of the war effort going on in Khazal-Gar, and a nation's priorities when it comes to helping their own people versus outside forces, right? That could be an interesting thing for World of Warcraft to explore. But shot down pretty much immediately because the representative from the Alliance pretty much says, no, we've been sending help. And it turns out they've just been stolen en route by bandits. So all the issues are largely because, not all of them, but at least they're portrayed to largely be a result of the Red Dawn, who do not feel like a certifiable threat at all because of the way they're written and the way you take them down so easily, without really suffering any significant loss. Like, there's a few corpses in here, and a few pools of blood, which are nice in my opinion, but it's like, they're just nameless NPCs. But like, any and all faction tension just gets eviscerated immediately because, well, Daneth, Trollbane, and Eitrig are like, okay, well, I clearly know it's not because of you, so what's really going on here? Cooler heads prevail and all that. Which, honestly, I'm in two minds about. It's nice to have some faction tension, though also at the same time, if any came as a result of this questline, it would feel contrived and really stupid. So the fact that, like, Daneth and Eitrig are essentially like, well, we know it's someone else because we know you wouldn't do it, but it does come off like, we need to band together with the power of friendship to take down our common foe. And there's also just various scenes throughout, which feel soft for no reason. There's a questline that you do here, where you have to save 3 bad guys who got captured by a group of trolls, right? So you go there to rescue them, and one dude is strapped down to a table, another guy is being quote-unquote boiled alive to be eaten, and then another guy is strapped to a frame to be used as target practice for trolls throwing axes at him. But like, okay, that could be really cool and add a bit of edge to the storyline about what the trolls are gonna do and the brutality there. But it's completely undercut and undermined because the guy strapped down to the table is completely fine. We got there before they could do anything to him. The guy wasn't actually being boiled alive. They had kind of just started, so the water was only a little warm. And despite being used as target practice for like the entire day, apparently the trolls have the accuracy of a stormtrooper and just never actually managed to land a hit. Or if they did, they never showed or indicated that he did get hit because the dude just walks away fine the moment you free him. It feels stupid and childish and feels, again, like a Saturday morning cartoon or something, which is not the vibe I think World of Warcraft should have. It shouldn't be grim dark like it's Berserk or Elden Ring or anything like that, but it needs a little bit more seriousness about it than this. Why is this story being told like I'm 5 years old? And like, the moment you free these guys, immediately they turn out to be repentant and go, no more Syndicate, no more Red Dawn. Like, if this doesn't end up being a fake out, what are we doing? Like, the torture borderline felt like it was Tom and Jerry-esque. And to me, the biggest thought that I had in my mind while I was playing this story is that it feels like there's 2 teams in the writing department at Blizzard. You have one team that writes the overall plot beats for the throughput storyline of World of Warcraft, going from expansion to expansion, and then you have another team who are focused on writing the details and the dialogue, and in my opinion, the errors and the issues, for the most part, lie on that second team. I think it's an interesting overall premise, and a plot that, while it's not perfect and has its issues, is really undercut and compromised because of weak delivery that does not draw up hype for things clearly meant to be further explored in Midnight. In fact, it makes me disinterested and more likely to groan when they are revisited, because it's going to remind me of this story. And the big reveal that Mayrin was out of prison, like, oh my god, what a Disney-ass villain. She basically went, yes, it was me, Batman, all along, and now I shall rule. Dude, what are we doing? How did we just go from Xalatath and Gallywix to this? And then at the very end, Daneth makes the obviously stupid decision to feel righteous in the moment and let Mayrin live, where she immediately says, this is not over, which, Count how many times that line has been used in World of Warcraft, and will almost certainly come up again in Midnight. And then when it happens again, inevitably, we're going to curse out Daneth when we have to deal with this Mickey Mouse squad of villains again. A potentially really cool storyline in a really interesting setting, drawing on both Horde and Alliance and all these separate human factions of antagonists over the years, are being ruined by this Mickey Mouse storytelling. Kenneth Trollbane even goes like, oh, she doesn't have her name or her title anymore, so they'll clearly not follow her anymore. It's like, buddy, what are we doing? It's absolutely idiotic logic for someone who is supposed to be as experienced and wise as Kenneth Trollbane. World of Warcraft needs to stop making all the wizened war hero characters in this game absolutely incompetent. It's not interesting or a good story, it comes off as off-putting and annoying. And the biggest problem that I alluded to at the beginning of this video is the fact this storyline is written in such a way to where it just feels like setup from start to finish and is absolutely coming back at midnight. But when it does, no one's going to care about it because the build-up for that storyline was awful. Your first impressions are compromised because of this. And the reason I said it may be too late at the beginning of this video is because there's no way they go back to the drawing board and completely redo the dialogue for this, because it's already on PTR. I just don't think there's time to do it. If they can end up doing that, I would be amazed. I highly doubt it though. Bayron is here because she feels like she exists solely as a counterbalance to Daneth Trollbane, to where she starts this story overly optimistic about Stromgod, and Daneth Trollbane starts off overly pessimistic, and so at the very end of it all, they can meet somewhere in the middle. That's like her entire purpose for being here. So instead of getting a bunch of really cool story or context about the Arathi Empire and how it could relate to things there, we get a little bit of that at the very beginning, but then it's just thrown to the wayside. It's like, why are we ignoring all the cool stuff we could be exploring in favor of whatever this ended up being? This is storytelling and a level of quality we cannot have in World of Warcraft for the rest of the World Soul Saga, because it's going to fail to capture the hearts and minds of people the way they wanted to if the story is told like this. There's nothing interesting to explore or like to really dig deep about. It's like the Red Dawn are just the bad guys. It's a storyline that in my opinion feels scared. It feels scared to be anything besides this. It doesn't want interesting shades of gray. It doesn't want interesting and complex villains. It doesn't even want villains that people could think are cool. It just wants to go, this is bad, this is good. There's your story. It's short both in height and stature. It's uninteresting. It's boring, repetitive, and the disappointment from start to finish. And yeah, it is short. It's only like an hour long. It's not going to take that much time. But this could have done so much good to build up hype and anticipation for Midnight, to lay the groundwork for storylines clearly going to be explored at Midnight, and just does none of that. In fact, it makes me less interested in Midnight because I know I'm going to have to revisit the themes and characters again when they're just so boring. Can World of Warcraft stop it with this boring writing? I know you can do better, because 11.0 and 11.1 were better. This feels like I'm back in Dragonflight again. That's not where I want to be, narratively speaking. With that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great day. Go play some video games. Leave a comment down below. Your thoughts, your opinions on this storyline. Does it sound interesting to you? Did you play in the PTR? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What do you think is wrong with it? Where do you want Blizzard to go from here? Do you think this is an issue they need to address? I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.